tragedy after the next before we really had time to recover. Starting with the active shooter situation, we knew that they were in engineering. Okay, there we go. We knew that he was in engineering, but we didn't know what that meant. So we locked down like they might be right outside. We were in the dark under our desks with the students that happened to be there when we noticed a situation was developing. It was very quiet. I remember being very tense and listening with my whole body, wondering how I was gonna have to pee into this trash can in front of this student and my colleague. It wasn't even my trash can. It's weird the things that you think about at those times. I was weighing a 3-hole punch in my hand, and all I could think of was Jack Reacher fighting tips. Strike out from the body with one quick motion. Everything you got, go for something soft at the bridge of the nose or the eyes. Don't wind up and telegraph your moves. It's hard to ask yourself, am I willing to kill someone to live? Can I do it with a 3-hole punch? And to find that being pretty nonviolent, I was surprised that there was really not much hesitation before I got to yes, absolutely. That was June. Just a few short months later in October, we had a student jump off our building and die. I was the last person to meet with him. I didn't really know how to react. I had a few tears here and there, but mostly I was just numb. I knew what we had talked about, of course. I had my notes, and I had a general sense of things that he was active in, but for the life of me, I couldn't quite picture his face, and it was bothering me so much. I spent more time than I'd like to admit trying to find a photograph of him just so I could kind of like have that image. I probably should have gotten some help then, but you know, it's a sad situation, and I was sad, and it's okay to be sad, and I've always bounced back before, so there would go to stand there, I would bounce back again, and I was okay for a while. But then later that same year, we had another student die who killed himself. This one I didn't work with directly, but it hit me really hard. I think it was the next day we were at the UCAN AGCA conference, and the Dean of Students was speaking, and she said, which I'm not surprised she mentioned something. I mean, she was on all the emails, so this death was on her mind too. But what she chose to say was, when we lose a student, that's on us. I couldn't help myself. I burst into tears at the back of Schoenberg Hall and just was like, thank God the counselor who was working with him directly isn't here. You know, suicide is supposed to be one of those preventable deaths, but it's more complicated than that. It's never just one person or one interaction. You can do everything right. You can say everything right, and a student can still choose to take their lives. We already have a hard time not blaming ourselves. And here she was, I know she didn't mean it this way, but here she was saying directly that it was our responsibility. I was angry, I was sad, I had a lot of feelings going on, and they were all kind of leaking out. So at this point, I definitely did reach out to staff and faculty counseling. I was not sure what to expect. I had never been to therapy before. I was nervous. Spoiler alert, they were wonderful and warm. And I was an emotional wreck. All right, so after about 15 minutes of crying, nobody was surprised except for me, but I was personalizing these students' choices. I had had some difficult experiences in college as a student. I come to a college campus every day. I meet with students going through difficult situations. And on the flip side, I have an opportunity to be some comfort to them that maybe I didn't have, right? So it's definitely a little too close to home. Staff and faculty counseling is wonderful, but it is more of a triage situation, like an acute crisis. You only have 3 sessions. So crying for 50 minutes, 1. Follow up to make sure I was okay after that, 2. And then I only had 1 left. Obviously, I had a lot to unpack. So they recommended that I talk to someone outside, find another therapist, and save that 3rd one for when I really needed it. So my favorite thing is researching options. I log into my insurance portal and I go, therapist, within 5 miles of work or home. And the map changed colors with the hits. A therapist in LA, it's ridiculous. There's so many, just pages after pages of names, letters after them that I don't really know what they mean, you know, and all this terminology I wasn't familiar with. I definitely became overwhelmed after a couple minutes. And but you know, I had that cathartic session. I was feeling a lot better. I was back in the daily grind. So I was like, I can probably put this off a little bit. We all know how that works. Procrastination is not a tool for success. And eventually you will have to face it. That happened for me a year later. We had another student kill themselves, this time just a quarter before his graduation. That one also a major that I don't see directly, but just gutted me. I was stuck in this pit of despair, just asking myself, is this the new normal? can I go through this again? I don't know if I can. It's going to happen again. We have a new crop of students. At some point, somewhere, someone is going to kill themselves. And I don't know if I want this for my life. At this point, my boyfriend was like, hey, kind of seems like you're thinking about quitting your job. Do you want to talk to someone first? So after I was like, hey, smarty pants, I'm just trying to feel some feelings here. He had a point, though. So this time I did call my insurance, which I should have done from the beginning, because they also are warm and welcoming when you call for mental health, behavioral health stuff. And they helped interpret some of what I was looking at, make sure I was using the right search terms, you know, and then I further pared down the list because it was still really long, based on who I thought I could open up to. Did it matter if it was a man or a woman? Was age important? Could I talk to someone with less life experience than me, you know? Was the location convenient so I would have no excuses? Things like that. And then I just started calling. This is where I was kind of like, well, I called my insurance, I called staff and faculty counseling, and there was someone there who already starts saying like, how can I help you? And you're like, oh yes, I need help. When you call around for a therapist, that is not what happens. You are leaving voicemails, and it can be very discouraging, you know? I definitely had a script and just left messages all over the place. And then I didn't hear back for quite some time. I almost went back to the drawing board, or possibly even was pretty close to giving up again when I was able to make my first appointment. So based on my first experience, I expected to be emotional. I was not prepared for how raw it would be. I cried the entire time. I went back to my car and cried for another 20 minutes before I could even drive away. I went home and called my mom because she wanted to know how it went, and cried some more, you know? It's like reopening a wound and dumping everything out, or scraping it out, if you will. It doesn't all want to come, and seeing what you can wash away, right? But it's painful and it hurts, and those feelings linger. All those things you shove down way deep are suddenly up at the surface. But despite all that, I still 100% believe that going to therapy is the best thing I have ever, ever, ever done for myself, ever. One of those difficult situations that I kind of referenced earlier, without going into a lot of detail, is that I was raped in college, and it was a very, very dark time for me. I mean, I eventually got to a place where that experience is a part of my story and my identity in a way that is not paralyzing. You know, it's even been an asset in some situations, but it took me a long, long time to get there, and it took a lot of intentional effort. So even though I know, and this is very clear in therapy and everything, and I'm on board, it is not my fault in any way, shape, or form, right? I was still carrying a responsibility of, I should have known better. How could I have been so stupid? You know, I trusted the wrong person. And my therapist was like, did that person ever, at any time before that, indicate that you couldn't have trusted them? No. So how could you have possibly, in this instance, known that you couldn't have trusted them? I couldn't. And she's like, super simple, super logical, but I couldn't put those things together, you know, not on my own. And even when she was saying it, I was like, yeah. I know that here. That's not how I feel. And it took several weeks before those things actually really sunk in. And I physically felt something just like crumble and like melt away. Something that I thought I was good with, that I had moved on from, but was actually carrying for 20 plus years, was just gone. I can't even describe what that feels like, that lightness. If it never happened again in therapy, it would have been worth it just to come to that moment. Of course, it did happen again, because we're dumping out a lot of buckets. They aren't always so dramatic. Sometimes it's like, why do I cry so hard during Frozen? What is it about that, you know? Sometimes it's students that I'm afraid about because of why I even got there in the first place. I was meeting with someone to dismiss him, and he was so grateful. He was like, thank you so much for all your time and all the things you've done for me. I'm so grateful to UCLA for everything that I've been able to do here, the people I've been able to meet, my opportunities. It was weird, like he was accepting an award, but he was being dismissed. After he left, it hit me that I was so disquieted because it sounded like he was saying goodbye, which of course, alarm bells go off. I immediately reach out and I'm like, hey, I feel really concerned about our last conversation. If you're having any thoughts like this, please call this number. I let CRT know, and then I went to therapy. And she goes, all right, he killed himself, go. I was like, what? super direct, unprepared, but I looked at it and I would be okay. Like it would be painful and sad, but it wouldn't spin me into that despair like the other ones. We weren't even directly working on that. It was just like a new place I was at. I was completely stunned, a total 180 from when I first came in. So for some of you, that might be all that you need, just one or two breakthroughs, learning some more stuff about yourself that makes you a stronger and better person in these meetings. For me, it's been a little bit different. It turns out I have a pretty regular pattern of depression in my life. So I need a little bit more. What that looks like for me is that if your feelings are your children, you don't want to shove them into the trunk, sight unseen, but you don't want them running amok in the car or, God forbid, driving, right? So when I'm having a bad day, that's exactly what's happening. And I need to put in the effort to wrangle them back into their seatbelts so that we can journey along this road together, or I need to pull over until it calms down. After a couple back-to-back episodes, just last year, where I was having a really hard time with this, my whole office knows, they all watched me crumble and rebuild. My therapist said, why don't you talk to your doctor, who recommended I try an antidepressant. It doesn't numb my feelings, which I was really worried about. Doesn't really fix anything, it's kind of a bummer. I still have to do the work, but a lot of the work that I need to do involves being compassionate, listening, being non-judgmental, which are things that we hone every day when we meet with our students. But it's not intuitive to turn those things back onto yourself, even though you know how to do it. It's not easy. But those simple gifts are so impactful. And when things are difficult, who deserves your care and kindness more than you do? So I still have bad days, definitely, but I'm driving the car now more often than not. So yeah, it's a work in progress. Here I am for my photo. Alina. Finally me again, and a better me. Thank you.